Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over 10 really overpriced vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. A lot of these vehicles have had price changes recently. A lot of them are just really expensive for what you actually get in return. Some of them are definitely going to be a little bit questionable and might be hot takes, but I think you guys are going to understand once I talk about it. So let's go ahead and get into it, starting off with number 10. At number 10 we have the Tula, coming in at $3,075,000 all the way up to $4.1 million if you do not have the trade price. The Tula is an interesting plane, but it's not worth over $3 million if you have the trade price, and over $4 million. It's literally the same price as the FH1 Hunter. And the plane is not that interesting. It does have vertical takeoff, which is pretty cool, but it's very slow and it's not exactly very useful. It does have the ability to land in the water as well, but when are you ever going to use that? It's not very fast, it's not a very good looking plane either, and I just think for over $3 million or over $4 million, it is an absolute ripoff for what you're actually getting. So for that reason, it's at number 10. Let's go ahead and move on to number 9. At number 9, we have the Mogul. The Mogul goes for $2,350,000 up to $3,125,500 if you don't have the trade price. The Mogul is just not a good plane. Like, it doesn't have any redeeming qualities. Like, yes, it's kind of a cool older looking plane, but what is the purpose in this plane? When are you ever going to use a Mogul? It's just not worth picking up, and I know that these two that I've picked so far are pretty like obvious choices. Like, yeah, those are overpriced because they're terrible and nobody's going to use them, but seriously, the Mogul, like, it's a little cheaper than the Tula, but I would say the Tula is actually more useful than the Mogul because the Mogul is just terrible, but of course the Tula costs more, so it's more overpriced. But the Mogul is just terrible. Why would you buy this? You'd be better off spending this money on like literally like a Bezra or something like that and save the rest of the money, or just don't buy anything. Just literally don't buy anything, save up, and you know, get something that actually matters. But the Mogul is not a very useful plane, and it is definitely overpriced. So that's it for number 9. Let's move on to number 8. At number 8, we have the Declasse Granger 3600 LX. Now, the Granger used to be just over $1 million, up to $1,380,000 if you don't have the trade price. However, it's been increased with the price changes that came out on April 27th to $1.5 million with the trade price, or $2 million without the trade price, which is actually crazy because the Granger 3600 LX, which came out with the contract DLC, is actually slower than the original 2013 Declasse Granger, and it's slower than most other Imani Tech capable vehicles, and that's the only reason you'd even buy a Granger 3600 really, is because it is an Imani Tech vehicle. But now, because of the price increase, you can actually get the Enos Jubilee for cheaper than the Granger 3600 LX. You can also get the Enos Deity for less money than the Granger 3600 LX. In fact, if you have the trade price for the Bravado Buffalo STX, which puts it down to just over $1.6 million, you can actually get the STX for cheaper than the Granger. It makes no sense. I don't know why the Granger got the price increase and none of the other Imani Tech vehicles really did, because there's a lot of better vehicles than the Granger 3600. It's like probably the worst of them, honestly. I mean, the Enos Deity is a little slow off the line, but once you get moving, it's pretty quick, and overall it's a decent vehicle. But the Granger 3600 LX, it has no right to be a $2 million vehicle or a $1.5 million vehicle. It's kind of crazy, but definitely an interesting change. I don't know why Rockstar felt the need to change the 3600, but hey, they did, and now it is definitely an overpriced vehicle, considering you can get way better Imani Tech vehicles for a little bit cheaper than it. At number 7, we have the P996 Laser. I mean, I think this is an obvious choice. $6.5 million. When you can literally just go to the military base and get one for free. You can also just buy a military base hangar, which is where you should have a hangar anyways if you plan to own one, and you can go and get in a laser for literally free, and you won't even get stars, and you can just take off and leave and use it for, you know, until it blows up, and then just go back to the hangar. And you can even spawn at the hangar too, so like, it's crazy. You just change your spawn location to the hangar if you want a laser, change sessions, and you got a laser just like that. $6.5 million is crazy, especially considering you can get the brand new Raiju for $6.8 million, and it actually does have some stuff you can do to it. You can change a few things on it. The only thing you can do to the laser is just change the color, which is extremely lame for $6.5 mil. So The Laser is definitely overpriced. Rockstar should seriously consider dropping the price of the Laser down to similar to the Hydra, maybe $3 million, $4 million, something like that. I think that would be a much more fair price for the Laser and would definitely get more people to purchase it. That's it for the Laser, number 7. On to number 6. At number 6, we have the Imponte Deluxo, coming in at $5,750,000 now. That is a lot of money. The price used to be $4,721,500, which I already kind of thought was a little bit steep. Yes, it has very good tracking missiles. Yes, it does fly. It's not very fast in the air though, and it also has no armor. So the Deluxo, I don't know, for $5,750,000, like that's almost $6 million. It has no armor. But it does have aggressive tracking missiles. That's the one thing I will give it, is that it does have aggressive tracking missiles, and yes, you can hover it and fly it, which is pretty cool to do with a car. And yeah, it's the DeLorean or whatever, but for $6 million for a novelty that it's the DeLorean, I don't know. I think it's really overpriced, and this is probably a hot take. I'm definitely going to get some hate for this, but the Deluxo is definitely very overpriced right now. I think 4.7 was already overpriced, but it was a lot more of a fair price than almost 6 mil. So I think this is kind of a crazy price increase. I don't really know why Rockstar did this, but there you have it. Imponte Deluxo at number 6. Let's move on to number 5. And number 5, another hot take, and I'm definitely going to get some super hate for this, but we have the Mammoth Avenger. The Avenger itself costs $3,450,000, and you also used to need to own a facility to store it, but now you can store it in the hangar, which obviously storing it in the hangar is a little bit of a better option now, I think, so you don't actually have to own a facility anymore to be able to buy an Avenger. But it's $3,450,000 literally just for the Avenger, and that's not counting upgrades. And upgrades can put the price of this thing well over $5 million. I mean, just the new upgrade that came out with the Los Santos Mercenaries DLC is about $1.4 million. And that's not counting the weapon workshop. That's not counting the turrets. That's not counting the vehicle workshop. That's not counting liveries and all the other upgrades like bombs. And then there's new weapon upgrades that have been added to it as well. And the thruster to get back into the Avenger from the ground. This thing can cost you probably $7 million now. And I just think that that's a little steep, because yes, the Avenger is a very good vehicle, but it also has glitched armor. So you never quite know how many missiles the Avenger is going to take. I have heard that it's been slightly fixed since it originally came out, but for the longest time, this thing could get taken down by like one RPG just on a whim because the armor was glitched. And sometimes it would be able to take like, I don't know, 15 RPGs, and then sometimes it would literally take one. And you never know what you were going to get with the Avenger. So I just think that it's a little steep. I wish that it was a little bit cheaper. I would say if this thing went for like 2 million, like 300,000, I think that would be a lot more of a fair price, considering all the upgrades still cost a ton of money. And with this new terminal upgrade that you can put in it to get access to the Los Santos Mercenary missions, those missions pay like nothing. So you'd have to do the mission several times, and I just don't really think it's worth it. That's it for the Avenger at number 5. On to number 4. Next up at number 4, we have the Grotti Italia RSX, coming in at $2,598,750, all the way up to $3,465,000. The Grotti Italia RSX, don't get me wrong, I really like this car, looks wise at least, and performance in a straight line is pretty good as well. It does have one of the higher top speeds in GTA Online. However, the RSX does actually have broken downforce values, which means that it's not very good around corners. And for the price, considering that there are 2 other sports class vehicles that are far cheaper than the RSX and that both outperform the RSX, and arguably one of the 2 at least looks just as good as the RSX, if not maybe a little bit better, in the Ocelot Pariah and the Grotti Italia GTO. The Ocelot Pariah is $1,420,000 and the Italia GTO is $1,960,000, both of which are quite a bit cheaper than the RSX and outperform it. So as much as I like the RSX, it is definitely a very overpriced sports car in GTA Online. Definitely one that I would maybe avoid until you're a little bit further in the game. With that being said, I do own 2 of them, but it is definitely an overpriced car, unfortunately, guys. So that's it for number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Next up at number 3, we have the Grotti Vigilante, coming in at $3,750,000. Now, don't get me wrong, the Vigilante is a very cool vehicle. It definitely has its place in GTA Online, but I do feel like for its price, considering what we have in the game now available to us to be purchased, it is a little bit overpriced. Now, it does have some of the most aggressive tracking missiles in the game, and it is technically like the fastest land vehicle in the game without HSW. And even with HSW, I think it is actually one of the fastest still. But the problem with the Vigilante is, despite it having machine guns and missiles and being very good generally, it doesn't have a single bit of armor. It cannot even take one explosive, meaning that it's just piss weak to use against players, which I think makes it lose a lot of its functionality. Now, it would be different if it had like a missile lock-on jammer or something like that, but of course it doesn't, because it came out way before missile lock-on jammers were even a thing. So unfortunately, I do think that the Vigilante is definitely a little bit overpriced. I think if it was $2,750,000, it would be a lot more fitting. I understand that the pricing reflects what was going on in GTA at the time. The Vigilante used to be a very, very good vehicle because there were a lot less things to counter it, but now that there's so many things to counter it in the game, it is definitely quite overpriced. That's it for the Vigilante. Let's move on to number 2. At number 2, we have a car that never had any business being as expensive as it was. It is, of course, the Dubachi Champion. The Dubachi Champion used to go for $2,246,250 with the trade price up to $2,995,000, but now Rockstar has increased the price of it to $2.8 million for the trade price and $3,750,000 if you don't have the trade price. Now, the Dubachi Champion has always been overpriced, considering that it's not even the fastest vehicle that came out with the contract DLC. The Ignis was faster, and actually around a circuit, the Bravado Buffalo STX is faster than the Dubachi Champion. Both of those cars have Amani tech. The Buffalo STX has 2 more doors, and it technically is faster than the Champion. So why is the Champion so goddamn expensive? The Champion literally just has no business being as expensive as it is. $3.75 million is a ton of money, considering what you actually get with the Champion, because it's not that fast, it doesn't have that good a handling, it's very slow off the line as well, and overall it just is not deserving of having a price increase. It didn't even deserve to be almost a $3 million car if you didn't have the trade price before, but now adding an extra $755 grand on top of that, that is crazy, and I don't understand it, because the Champion is not that good of a vehicle. I like the look of the Champion, I don't want anyone to get that misconstrued. I actually like the Champion quite a lot, but it has always been a very overpriced vehicle. That is it for number 2. Let's move on to number 1. At number 1, we're going to have a bit of a hot take here, boys. This is the Pegasi Weaponized Ignis HSW. It goes for $4.25 million now, which was formerly $3,245,000. The car is extremely fast, and having the top-mounted minigun is very nice. However, the gun only faces forward, and the car, similar to the Vigilante, can only take 1 missile. However, it does have a missile lock-on jammer. But for $4,250,000, you can also get a Toreador for the exact same amount of money, and I think that the Toreador, even though it doesn't look nearly as good as the Pegasi Weaponized Ignis with HSW, it is a much better option for purchase because it can take a lot more damage. It also has the rocket booster, and it's got very aggressive tracking missiles and quite high damaging machine guns as well. I think that the Weaponized Ignis with the price increase is kind of an insane take from Rockstar. It was already like pretty fairly priced, I think. It's not that OP of a vehicle. It does have that missile lock on jammer, but if you get hit by an RPG or a rogue homing missile or a sticky bomb, you're done. So it's not like it's that overpowered really, and I just don't see the need for the increase of, you know, just over $1 million. And it doesn't really make sense. And then HSW on top of that is going to be at least another $500,000 plus any additional upgrades. With the HSW, you're looking at more like a $5 million car, and I just don't see how the Weaponized Ignis HSW deserves to be a $5 million car. It's a very good vehicle. I'm not saying that it's not a good vehicle, but it is definitely a little bit overpriced. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. That is it for my picks for the top 10 overpriced vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. Let me know what you thought of my list. Give me some ideas for some other overpriced vehicles or any other video ideas you guys would like to see in the comments down below. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this, or maybe I will make your suggestion into a video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, dislike if you didn't, of course. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.